Now, let's get started. Let's get started off on the right foot. Our first speaker is the executive director of the Greater Good Science Center at the University of California, Berkeley. He's also the editor-in-chief of an award-winning online magazine, Greater Good. And if that wasn't enough, he is a podcast producer and a guest columnist. As you might imagine, he's here to share some greater wisdom with us all. Please welcome Jason Marsh.
Thanks so much, Heather. I am really grateful and honored to be with you all this morning and kicking off this program. So, as Heather shared, for more than 20 years, I have led an organization based at UC Berkeley called the Greater Good Science Center. How many of you have heard of the Greater Good Science Center before today? All right, 57%. That's great. Not surprising, perhaps, with this crowd. So then, as many of you know, what we do at the Greater Good Science Center is we study what we call the science of a meaningful life. And we translate that science into terms and resources that make the science more understandable and useful to people outside of academia. What this has meant for me personally is that I have read probably 1,000 studies on the roots of social and emotional and societal well-being. I've spoken with hundreds of the world's top researchers of virtues like compassion, generosity, gratitude, purpose, and much else. And I have edited countless magazine articles, video and podcast scripts, and much else, all centering on the science of a meaningful life. And for more than 2 decades of doing this work, if I had to name the one thing that I think is most important to leading a happy and meaningful life, it's this: nothing. Zero. Or to be more accurate, it's nonzero. Nonzero sum thinking. What do I mean by this? So nonzero thinking is a term that was popularized by journalist Robert Wright. It's the opposite of zero-sum thinking, believing that one person's gain is necessarily another person's loss. For more than 2 decades of doing this work, I've come to believe that zero-sum thinking puts us on a path to misery. It is the enemy of well-being. It's antithetical to leading a meaningful life. Instead, I believe we need to embrace the win-win mentality that is essential to non-zero-sum thinking. And to explain why, I'm going to offer 3 findings from the science that we cover at the GGSC. First off, non-zero-sum thinking enables us to feel more satisfied with our lives because it helps us avoid the trap of social comparison. I believe if you want to find true happiness and meaning in life, one of the greatest mistakes you can make is basing your own sense of self-worth and well-being on how you think you stack up against other people. This is a self-defeating strategy. This is a problem in part because you can always find other people who at least seem like they're doing better than you. And one of the greatest problems in doing this is that research finds that when we compare ourselves to others, we typically overestimate how happy they are, and we underestimate their levels and how frequently they experience negative emotion. And accordingly, not surprisingly, then people who compare themselves to others more often actually experience lower levels of happiness and higher levels of anxiety and depression. Instead, a non-zero approach to happiness centers on the practice of empathic joy, feeling good when good things happen to other people. And feeling good when good things happen to other people. This is a proven strategy that has been linked to greater feelings of satisfaction in life. And that really makes sense because empathic joy gives us a 2-for-1 for happiness. Not only do we feel good when good things happen to us, but we feel happy when other people get a boost as well. And fortunately, research suggests this isn't simply a practice that we're either born with or not. It's a mentality that we could cultivate and strengthen over time. And research has identified a number of ways to help us do that. One in particular is a practice called capitalizing on positive events. And it was first developed and tested by psychologist Shelley Gable, and it's pretty simple. You ask someone else to share with you one good thing that happened to them that day. And as they share, you try to respond with openness and curiosity. You make eye contact with them if you can. You use engaged body language. You ask open-ended questions to encourage them to tell you more. And you cheer them on. You try to tease out the positive implications of what they're telling you. It may feel a little awkward or cheesy at first, but studies find once we get past that initial awkwardness and any feelings of even jealousy, perhaps, we actually experience a genuine boost of positive emotions, and we feel more connected to the other person. And the idea is the more we practice this over time, the more natural it becomes to weave into our everyday conversations. This is also where the science of gratitude comes in, which teaches us that to feel truly happy and truly feel like our life is meaningful, we need to appreciate and even savor the good things in our lives and recognize the people who've brought that goodness into our lives, rather than fixating on what other people have that we don't. Over the last 2 decades, a considerable body of research, including many studies led by Bob Evans, who's here with us today, this research has linked an attitude of gratitude to greater feelings of satisfaction and meaning and contentment in life. This is one of the huge areas of science that has emerged from the field of positive psychology. Another major area of research, another major finding from this research, is that perhaps the greatest determinant of living a happy and meaningful life is having strong social connections. And this is the second area where non-zero-sum thinking is so important. It helps us build stronger relationships. To appreciate why, it helps to understand what a zero-sum approach to relationships looks like. Studies find that people with a stronger zero-sum mentality actually are less likely to compromise with others, less likely to cooperate, and they're less trusting of other people in general. They seem to view their relationships as transactional, as competitions with winners and losers, and they try to win at their relationships. The problem for them is that compromise, cooperation, trust, these are all essential ingredients to successful and enduring relationships. We need to be able to empathize with others, demonstrate intellectual humility, compromise, and admit mistakes. When we do, studies find that our partners, our friends, even our colleagues say they respect us more and they feel more satisfied with our relationship. And these are all the hallmarks of a non-zero-sum approach to relationships. Here, I especially want to call out the science and practice of forgiveness, perhaps the ultimate non-zero-sum virtue. At the Greater Good Science Center, we've tried to debunk the popular misconception that sees forgiveness in zero-sum terms, that sees it as something you do for other people. You sacrifice your own needs in order to make others feel better. Instead, a considerable body of research has found that forgiveness carries benefits for the forgiver. They enjoy better mental health, lower blood pressure, lower levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, and they enjoy more committed and enduring relationships. This all speaks to one of the great paradoxes of relationships. The more sensitive we are to other people's needs, the more we give more than we try to get, it actually serves our own long-term self-interests. It strengthens our social bonds and therefore sets us up for a happier, more meaningful life over time. And finally, the third area, the third way that non-zero-sum thinking promotes a meaningful life is by nurturing our compassionate instincts. We know that to feel like your life is truly meaningful, you need to have commitments that go beyond yourself, especially by demonstrating care and compassion toward others. Studies from evolutionary biology suggest that humans have a deeply rooted instinct for compassion. It seems to be essential to our survival as a species. And accordingly, studies from neuroscience find that when we practice compassion, reward areas of our brains light up, reinforcing this behavior. It seems to make us feel like our life is well lived. But we won't actually enjoy those benefits of compassion if we see it in zero-sum terms. If we see it as a limited resource, where practicing it towards some people means we have less for ourselves or others. People who think this way about compassion tend to withhold their compassion or limit it just to people in their own immediate social circle, those they see as being most like them. And they ignore or downplay the needs of people outside of that circle. This strategy may seem to bring some short-term benefits to people in that they're allocating more resources to people in their own circle. However, studies suggest that it carries longer-term social and psychological costs. This has been borne out by research by Darrell Cameron at Penn State University and others who found that people who withhold their compassion suffer a kind of psychological wound. They tend to think less of themselves over time, and they demonstrate a weakened commitment to their own moral principles. Probably because they've had to tell themselves, if I'm not acting on this instinct for compassion, this instinct that's evolved over millions of years, then it must not actually be that important. In order to justify their decision to withhold compassion, they need to devalue the importance of this moral emotion. And as a result, they seem to devalue morality in general. And there's evidence they might actually behave less morally as well. Instead, a non-zero mentality views compassion as a renewable resource. The more we practice it, the more we expand our capacity to feel and act with more of it in the future. That's a view of compassion that's actually been backed up by research, and it's associated with greater feelings of connectedness and purpose in life. That, in and of itself, should be enough, I think, to encourage us to embrace non-zero-sum thinking, on top of its benefits for our relationships and our feelings of life satisfaction. I truly hope that research in all three of these areas can inspire us to get beyond the limits of zero-sum thinking. Doing so should bring us more happiness, stronger relationships, and a greater commitment to the greater good. Thank you.